This man has correctly predicted 9 of the last 10 elections using his own model of 13 criteria. Alan Lichtman is the distinguished professor of history at American University, and he looks at factors including incumbency, the economy, and social unrest. And in April, he was leaning toward Biden winning this election. So let's see where he stands now. Alan, thanks for being here. What's your prediction?
I haven't made a final prediction, but I can tell you a lot about this election. First of all of these pundits and pollsters and analysts that you see on all the cable channels and all the networks have no track record in predicting elections. And yet they come on and they claim they know how this debate is going to affect the outcome of elections. They have no idea. It's sports talk radio. It may be entertaining, but it has no scientific basis.
So what is
unlike
the
my
what is
team.
the impact, do you think?
Zero. Debates are not predictive of outcomes. Hillary Clinton won all 3 debates, still lost. John Kerry won all the debates, still lost. Barack Obama got trounced, 72 to 20% in the poll, worse than Biden, and went on to win. That's why we rely on the 13 keys which tap into the structure of how elections really work. And they show that Democrats' really only chance to win, contrary to everything you've heard, is with Biden running. Look at the incumbency key. Biden checks that off. The contest key, he checks that off. He was uncontested. It takes 6 keys to count out the White House party.
But you know,
that means
Alan,
of the remaining 11 keys, 6 would have to fall. Let me finish.
yeah.
Biden doesn't run. They lose the contest key. They lose the incumbency, and only 4 more keys would have to fall.
I think that that's actually kind of what I was trying to get at here, is that the problem right now is that the Democratic Party is considering replacing Biden mostly because it's unclear whether or not he actually physically can carry out the rest of this campaign and put up a fight against his opponent. So that seems like a fundamentally different thing than some of the items that you have in your rubric.
It's a huge mistake. They're not doctors. They don't know whether Biden is physically capable of carrying out a second term or not. Remember, a lot of folks were saying the same thing about Ronald Reagan, who was, 73, and age was very different then. And they said, he's not capable of carrying out another term. He won 49 states. So this is all foolhardy nonsense. The same pundits and pollsters who led us down the primrose path in 2016 are giving the Democrats horrible advice. This proves what I've been saying for years. Republicans have no principles. Democrats have no spine. Republicans are sticking with a blatant liar who lied for every 1 minute and 20 seconds of that debate. Donald Trump put out a lie. And by the way, lies stick. Debate performances can be overcome. And now the first sign of adversity, the spineless Democrats want to throw under the bus their own incumbent president. My goodness.
Joining me now to discuss this are 2 Republicans, both of whom are backing Joe Biden for president. We have Bill Kristol, director of Defending Democracy Together and editor-at-large of The Bulwark, and Stuart Stevens, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. He also wrote the book, The Conspiracy to End America. Gentlemen, great to have you here. Stuart, I read your piece in the New York Times today. You said that you're baffled by why Democrats are panicking about President Biden after that debate. Really?
Yeah, look, I mean, this is kind of crazy to me. The question is Joe Biden up to being president? Don't we have a big test? He has been president. He is president. He's been one of the most successful presidents of the modern era. It just seems sort of ridiculous. One guy has a bad night one night, and you go, okay, we're going to wipe away all this evidence that we have of the past years. And can I just make a point that the big complaint that a lot of us have, the overarching complaint, is that Donald Trump is an authoritarian who doesn't respect the will of the voters. Okay, I think that's true. What does it say that millions and millions and millions of voters voted to nominate Joe Biden, and now a group is just going to say, okay, forget those voters. We're going to decide who should be the next nominee? I mean, isn't that exactly the definition of authoritarianism?
Unless you think that you have new information that you didn't have during the nominating process, and unless the debate revealed some new information. But Bill, where are you on all of this?
Yeah, I think Joe Biden's been a good president. We owe him a debt for having defeated Donald Trump and for being quite a good president. That doesn't mean he's owed another term. The problem isn't what he's done over the last years or even recent months. It's what we saw Thursday night. We can't unsee it. It wasn't just a bad debate. He didn't just have a subpar debate like Obama did against Mitt Romney, which Stuart Stevens remembers very well in 2012. Of course, Obama bounced back from that because people thought, as Romney would have bounced back from a subpar performance, they were both up to the job. Can we look people in the eye and say that Joe Biden is up to the job of being president for the next 4 years? I'm for him. I'll vote for him against Trump because he's not an authoritarian, and the people around him will maintain the rule of law and so forth. But we can do better, and it's not authoritarian for Biden to choose to release his delegates and let them choose a perfectly competent vice president or governor or senator to replace him.
Stuart, President Biden reportedly reads the New York Times. Here's what he's reading this morning from their editorial board, because they think it's bigger, I should say, than one bad debate performance. They say, quote, "To serve his country, President Biden should leave the race. He struggled to explain what he would accomplish in a second term. He struggled to respond to Mr. Trump's provocations. He struggled to hold Mr. Trump accountable for his lies, his failures, and his chilling plans. More than once, he struggled to make it to the end of a sentence." What do you say?
This reminds me of, if this was professional sports and say, Bill Belichick lost a game, do you really think that he'd be calling up Mad Dog and asking for the advice of sports fans what he should do? This just isn't how politics works. The guy had a bad night. I have been in a lot of debate preps. I have seen people have terrible debate preps. I've seen bad debates. It doesn't mean a thing if the person is out there on the stump, if he's out there campaigning, and he's dealing with all these world leaders. So let me get this straight. So he's put together, I think we all would agree, an extraordinary coalition to basically help save the world in Ukraine. And these leaders are dealing with him. And could you put together that coalition if you were not up to being president? No, you couldn't. So, look, I don't understand this sort of panic. I think it's up to the Biden campaign. They're going to do, I think, the right thing, which is just put their heads down and keep going. You can't talk yourself out of something like this, talk your way out of something like this. You just have to keep going. And, if this is a presidential race that was decided in June, it would be the first time in American history.
Bill, what do you think about that?
Stuart and I are both sports fans. I think he may be more knowledgeable than I. Wrote a whole book about Ole Miss football. But, Sandy Koufax was the greatest pitcher in baseball from, 61 to 65, 1965. I was a fantastic fan of his as a young kid. And he retired because he couldn't keep pitching at that level. There's nothing, so it doesn't prove, that I think is the right analogy.
Stuart, I think that what people saw was more than what people internalized watching that. It didn't feel like an off night. It felt like someone who was more infirm than they had last seen. And so I take your point that being a good debater is maybe not even relevant to being a good president. However, what they saw that night was a lack of, or a weakening, I guess, of leadership and command and some other things that require that a president requires. So how do you explain what you saw that night on Thursday night?
Look, isn't there something sort of off about the fact that we're talking about that Joe Biden should not get out of this race and not Donald Trump? The way this debate was set up, Donald Trump had free reign to just constantly lie. And how could, if you and I were debating, and I started out by saying, I'm standing here today with a convicted criminal who has been guilty of plagiarism repeatedly in her career, and everybody knows that, and I'm the obvious choice. How would you respond? You can say, well, that's not true. That's crazy. And then the next question I go, I'm here with someone who was actually a Russian agent, and everyone knows that. And, it is a technique of authoritarians just to spew these constant stream of lies. And it is very difficult to deal with that in any sort of cogent way, because how do you say, well, that's crazy, that's not true? Listen, I think that the president could have had a better night, could have dealt with it better. I suspect he will next time. But a guy who's a convicted felon, who brags, who's out on bail, who brags about overturning Roe v. Wade and has this crazy idea that that was the majority opinion of the country, who wants to cut taxes on billionaires, who says that America is a third world country.
Yeah.
Really, we're going to elect that guy president of the United States?
Well,
I don't
if you
think-
believe, I mean, Stuart, if you believe it's still a binary choice. As you know, many Democrats are saying that Joe Biden should bow out so that there is someone younger who takes his place.